factory worker's wrench froze mid-turn as he heard the pilot's words echo across the Buffalo assembly floor. "I'm not flying that death trap." It was March 1942, and another test pilot had just walked away from the Bell P-39 Airacobra, the fifth refusal that week. The aircraft sat gleaming under the hangar lights, its fresh paint still drying on its distinctive mid-engine fuselage. Everything about it looked revolutionary. Tricycle landing gear, sleek lines, and a 37mm cannon mounted in its nose. But the men who were supposed to fly it into combat had another name for it: the flying coffin. The timing couldn't have been worse. America desperately needed fighters. Factories in Buffalo ran 3 shifts, 7 days a week, trying to produce enough aircraft to turn the tide against Germany and Japan. Yet here stood a brand-new fighter no one wanted. British pilots had tested it and cancelled their orders. The French never received theirs before their country fell. American pilots took one look at the specifications and requested transfers. Even Bell's own test pilots were starting to refuse flights. At first glance, the problem wasn't obvious. The P-39 looked modern and deadly. Its cannon could punch through armor plate like paper. On paper, the design was brilliant. Bell engineers had moved the Allison engine behind the pilot, improving weight distribution and freeing the nose for heavy armament. A long drive shaft ran beneath the cockpit floor, linking the rear engine to the propeller. But theory and reality collided. That drive shaft caused violent vibrations, shaking the entire airframe. Pilots said it felt like sitting on top of a washing machine running at full speed. Worse, the rear-mounted engine meant that any mechanical failure sent shrapnel and fire directly toward the cockpit. In normal fighters, engine failures happened in front, visible and often survivable. In the P-39, they happened behind, with no warning until the fire reached the pilot's back. The aircraft's most damning flaw appeared in climb tests. The Allison V-1710 engine, powerful at sea level, suffocated above 12,000 feet. German Messerschmitts cruised comfortably above 25,000 feet. A P-39 pilot trying to intercept bombers would find himself struggling for altitude, while enemy fighters dove from above, holding every advantage. Colonel Bruce Holloway, tasked with evaluating the P-39 for combat in 1942, wrote bluntly, "The aircraft is fundamentally unsuited for the high-altitude interception role for which it was designed. Its ceiling is inadequate. Its rate of climb is poor. Its handling characteristics at altitude are dangerous. I cannot recommend this aircraft for combat operations against the Luftwaffe." That report should have ended the program, but wartime necessity rarely allowed logic. America was still reeling from Pearl Harbor. Factories were barely keeping pace. Canceling the P-39 meant shutting down an entire production line and losing precious months. So, production continued. By spring 1942, hundreds of P-39s rolled off the line. Fighters no one wanted. Rows of unwanted aircraft gathered dust across the country. Then came an unexpected solution. The Soviet Union, locked in a desperate struggle against the German invasion, needed aircraft. Any aircraft. Stalin made it clear he needed fighters, bombers, and tanks in massive quantities. Through the Lend-Lease program, the United States began shipping equipment to the Soviets. Among those shipments were hundreds of unwanted P-39 Airacobras. To American officials, it was a convenient way to dispose of a failed design. If the Russians could use them, fine. If not, at least it wouldn't be Americans dying in them. The journey to the Eastern Front was perilous. Aircraft were shipped through U-boat-infested waters to the Persian Gulf, disassembled, and carried overland through Iran into southern Russia. Many were damaged or lost, but by late 1942, the first P-39s arrived at Soviet air bases. Their reception couldn't have been more different. Soviet pilots approached the Airacobra with open minds. They didn't care about high-altitude performance. They didn't fight at high altitude. The air war over the Eastern Front was brutal and low-level. Battles raged beneath 10,000 feet, where the P-39's engine thrived. German Stukas dive-bombed Soviet positions at treetop height. Soviet fighters attacked tanks just above the ground. In this deadly close-quarters environment, the Airacobra came alive. The first Soviet squadrons treated the P-39 as an experiment. Pilots who had flown fragile wooden aircraft suddenly found themselves in a sturdy, heavily armed machine. That 37mm cannon could obliterate a German bomber with a single hit. The Airacobra could take punishment and keep flying. Senior Lieutenant Grigory Rechkalov was among the first Soviet pilots to fly it in combat. He reported, "The American machine is heavy but solid. It does not climb well, but it dives like a stone. The cannon is magnificent. Today, I destroyed a Junkers Ju-88 with 3 shells. The entire tail section separated. This aircraft rewards aggression and punishes hesitation." That line, "rewards aggression and punishes hesitation," became the heart of Soviet Airacobra tactics. Pilots learned to strike fast and hard, fire the devastating cannon, then break away before the enemy could react. In the right hands, the P-39 became a predator. No one proved this better than Alexander Ivanovich Pokryshkin. Born in 1913, he began the war flying outdated fighters. When he transitioned to the P-39 in 1943, he immediately saw its potential. He developed the Formula for Air Combat, a precise tactical doctrine emphasizing altitude advantage, speed, and marksmanship. His squadron patrolled around 15,000 feet, spotted German formations below, dove in at high speed, fired at close range, and climbed away before retaliation. The results were devastating. Pokryshkin's kills mounted 5, 10, 20 victories. By the Battle of Kursk in July 1943, he was the Soviet Union's top ace. His regiment, flying American-built Airacobras, became one of the most feared units in the Red Air Force. German pilots learned to dread his name. Achtung! Pokryshkin in der Luft. Warning, Pokryshkin's in the air, became a common radio call. During the first week of the Battle of Kursk, his regiment destroyed over 100 German aircraft. Pokryshkin personally scored 23 confirmed kills that month. The supposedly failed American fighter was now a symbol of Soviet mastery. Reports of the P-39's success reached American intelligence. At first, officials dismissed them as propaganda. The same plane U.S. pilots had rejected was now dominating the Eastern Front? Impossible. Yet the requests kept coming. Moscow wanted more P-39s, not Mustangs or Thunderbolts. By 1944, thousands of Airacobras flew under the Red Star. Soviet aces achieved kill counts rivaling the best Allied pilots. Pokryshkin ended the war with 59 confirmed victories, all in American-built aircraft. The difference came down to doctrine. American strategy focused on high-altitude bomber escort. The P-39 failed there. Soviet strategy focused on low-altitude combat and ground support, missions where the P-39 excelled. Back in the U.S., Bell engineers studied the lessons. The Airacobra's failures exposed critical design flaws. Its Soviet success validated bold innovations. The tricycle landing gear, once mocked, became standard. The cockpit's side-opening car doors inspired future visibility designs. Even the concept of heavy nose-mounted armament influenced the next generation. Bell soon produced the P-63 King Cobra. An improved Airacobra, with a more powerful engine and aerodynamic refinements, many based on Soviet feedback. The U.S. never used it in combat, but the Soviets loved it. The P-39's failures forced engineers to master engine performance across all altitudes. Its Soviet success proved that no aircraft is inherently good or bad. It depends on how it's used. Pokryshkin, who mastered the Airacobra, became one of history's greatest aces, second only to Ivan Kozhedub. In his memoirs, he wrote, "The American machine taught me everything about air combat. It rewarded skill and punished mistakes. It gave me the tools to survive and the weapons to win." More than 4,700 P-39s were delivered to the Soviet Union. Nearly half of all produced. Soviet pilots flew them from Stalingrad to Berlin, scoring thousands of victories. These were the same aircraft American and British pilots had dismissed as death traps. By 1950, the Airacobra vanished from service. Most were scrapped, their metal recycled into new machines. A few survive in museums, silent among Mustangs and Thunderbolts, fighters once despised, now quietly honored. The story of the P-39 challenges every simple idea about success and failure. The same aircraft that failed spectacularly for one nation became a war winner for another. It reminds us that innovation often comes wrapped in mistakes, and that progress is born from both triumph and disaster. The flying coffin became the foundation of America's jet-age air superiority. When the F-86 Sabre soared into the Korean skies, it carried the DNA of the P-39, its landing gear, its visibility, its balance of design. Sometimes, the machines we reject teach us more than the ones we celebrate. And sometimes, history's failures become the blueprint for its greatest successes.
Find stories like this as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Thanks for watching.